We live in silently brutal times. No one seems to be on the verge of death, yet everyone feels on the edge of collapse. The pain doesn't bleed. It hides beneath the routine, beneath the exhaustion, beneath the addiction to distraction. You feel it, even if you don't know exactly why. There's a constant discomfort, as if you were at war with something you can't name. As if, deep down, there was a battle taking place, and no one ever taught you how to fight it. You wake up, your phone vibrates. 2 bad news, 3 demands, 1 overdue bill, and a comparison. You scroll and see someone living what you don't have. Peace, success, freedom, and before you've even had coffee, your mind is already in ruins. Anxiety, self-criticism, suppressed anger, emptiness. You feel weak, and that irritates you because you want to be strong. You want to be in control. But everything around you reminds you just how little you control. So I ask you, what exactly is under your control? Your past? Number your future? Number the people around you? Definitely not. But there is something you can control. Something that, once mastered, changes everything. The way you respond to the world. There is an ancient philosophy that was born for hard times. It wasn't made for temples. It wasn't made for self-help books. It was forged in chaos, lived by soldiers, slaves, emperors. It's called Stoicism. And its promise is simple. You can lose everything except your soul. Maybe you don't wear armor. Maybe you've never stepped inside an arena. But if you live in today's world, you are fighting. Fighting anxiety, fighting procrastination, fighting fears you never share with anyone. And if all of that is true, then you need to hear this story. This is not a story about war. It's a story about resistance, about principles, about inner steadiness, and it begins with a man who didn't seek glory, but justice, who didn't seek revenge, but peace, who lost everything, and yet remained standing. A man named Maximus. But like every good story, this isn't about him. It's about you. Maximus is not just a character. He's a mirror, an archetype of the silent warrior, of the man who keeps his honor even when everything invites him to corruption. He represents what Stoicism teaches, that true strength isn't in the sword, it's in the mind. Marcus Aurelius was emperor of Rome, but before ruling an empire, he learned to rule himself. In his meditations, written not for the world but for himself, he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not external events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This isn't just a beautiful quote. It's a principle of inner warfare, a foundation. It's what separates a slave from a free man, not chains, but consciousness. Maximus, as a symbol, lives this philosophy without ever needing to name it. He loses his family, his position, his freedom. But what he doesn't lose is his integrity. He doesn't beg. He doesn't take revenge out of hatred. He doesn't surrender to despair. He chooses to remain just. Because for the Stoic, being virtuous matters more than being right. It matters more than winning. Today, most people believe that to win is to have money, to have status, to have validation. But what if the true triumph is to be firm, to be just, to be unshaken in the face of pain? That is the proposal of Stoicism, and that is what Maximus represents. Marcus Aurelius also lost friends, battles, nights of sleep, but he wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." That echoes louder today than ever. When someone leaves you on read, you suffer. But not because of the act, but because of what you thought it meant. When life doesn't go the way you want, you break down. But the Stoic asks, what in this is truly under your control? If you're tired of reacting with anger, tired of being a hostage to your emotions, tired of feeling weak on the inside while pretending strength on the outside, then maybe it's time to begin your journey. Maximus is not the destination. He is the example, the spark that lights in us the will to become better. This video is the beginning of a path, not to entertain you, but to transform you. In the chapters to come, we will dive deep into the pillars of Stoicism: control, acceptance, virtue, and inner freedom. You don't have to live like Maximus, but you can think like him, act like him, live as he did, with honor. And in today's world, that alone makes you a gladiator. Every human being, at some point in life, asks, why is this happening to me? It's natural. We are beings who suffer, but we suffer more from the desire to control than from pain itself. Have you noticed that? You get irritated when someone doesn't reply to your message. You feel frustrated when your plan doesn't work out. You obsess over what people think of you. And in the middle of all that, you forget one simple yet powerful truth. You don't control the world, but you can control how you respond to it. Stoicism begins with one key: the dichotomy of control. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's greatest minds, said, "Some things are up to us, others are not. Simple? Yes, but revolutionary when truly lived." Let's bring this to life. You're stuck in traffic. You're late. The car in front won't move. You sigh. You curse. Rage builds inside you. Do you control traffic? No. Do you control time? Also no. But do you control your reaction? Yes. Or maybe you worked hard on a project, gave your all, lost nights of sleep, and the client said no, or your boss didn't even say thank you. Do you control recognition? No. But do you control the excellence with which you showed up? Yes. Modern life is a collection of distractions draining your energy, precisely because you try to control what you can't. Maximus lives this truth in its rawest form. He doesn't control the death of those he loves. He doesn't control the empire. He doesn't control the judgment of others. But at no point does he become a victim. Yes, he suffers, but he does not surrender to suffering. He feels anger, but he doesn't act out of vengeance. He takes what remains and turns it into virtue, and that is inner mastery. Now think about your life. What are you trying to control that is not in your hands? Does someone owe you something? Did someone hurt you, abandon you? Justice may never come. An apology may never arrive. But you can still choose to move forward. And that is Stoic freedom. Psychology calls this locus of control. People with an internal locus believe their destiny depends more on their own actions than on external factors. Those with an external locus feel like victims of life, powerless, at the mercy of fate. Studies show that people with an internal locus have lower rates of depression, greater emotional resilience, higher life satisfaction, more productivity and clarity. In other words, people who live like Stoics live better. A study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, 1998, followed thousands of people for decades. The result? Those who cultivated an internal locus were happier, healthier, even lived longer. In short, taking responsibility for yourself isn't just philosophy, it's science. Maximus could have become a bitter man. He had every right to turn cruel. But he chose the harder path, inner dominion. With each battle, he wasn't just fighting with swords, he was fighting with choices, fighting against anger, against impulse, against pride. And you? How do you react to failure? Do you blame yourself? Do you blame the world? Or do you look at yourself with honesty and try to be a little better the next day? The dichotomy of control is a daily exercise, a form of active meditation. You wake up and think, do I control the weather? No. Do I control how I'll deal with it? Yes. Do I control what others say about me? No, but do I control whether their words define my worth? Yes. That awareness changes everything. The Stoics use simple practices to live this philosophy. Negative visualization. Every morning, imagine that something may go wrong, but instead of panicking, prepare your mind. The goal isn't paranoia, it's emotional readiness. Clear separation. When something happens, ask, is this within my control? If not, let it go. If it is, act. Daily reflection. Journal. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself every day. He wasn't seeking answers, he was seeking clarity. The mind is the true battlefield. Maximus understood that. On the outside, he lost. He was chained, humiliated, wounded. But on the inside, he was never defeated, because he knew the world can take everything from you, except how you choose to respond. And that is the greatest freedom of all. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Adversity reveals genius. Prosperity conceals it." The Stoic doesn't run from pain. He observes it. He learns from it. He grows through it. And this is the new kind of strength the world needs. Not muscles, but firmness of soul. Close your eyes for a moment, take a deep breath, and think of something that often pushes you over the edge. Now ask yourself, can I control this? If yes, act. If not, accept. You are not what happens to you. You are what you do with what happens to you. The dichotomy of control is just the first pillar, the most basic and the most neglected. But there's a deeper teaching that challenges us even more. It's not enough to accept what you can't control. You must learn to love what happens. That's why we'll face the most difficult and most liberating Stoic idea, amor fati. Most people live at war with reality. They wish the world were different, that people were different, that the past had gone another way, that life followed a different script. But no matter how much we resist, what is continues to be. Reality doesn't bend to whims. It doesn't obey our desires. And the more we fight it, the more it wounds us. Stoicism teaches something beyond mere resilience, beyond patience, beyond simply moving on. It teaches something radical. It teaches you to love what happens, not just to tolerate it, not to force a smile, but to embrace it as part of the path. This is the essence of one of the most difficult and most transformative concepts in all philosophy, amor fati. Amor fati in Latin means love of fate, not a romantic or idealized fate, but real fate, made of losses, of failures, of silence, of days that don't go as planned. To love fate is to accept what comes with the same heart you would have for what you chose. It is to look at pain and say, you came. Then you are part of what forms me. Maximus did not choose his path. He didn't choose tragedy. He didn't choose betrayal. He didn't choose to be enslaved. But once it all happened, he accepted it, not with apathy, but with purpose. He understood, if this is the path the world placed before me, then let me walk it with honor. There is a huge difference between accepting and resigning. Resignation is bitter. It says, there's nothing I can do. It paralyzes. Stoic acceptance is active. It says, "This happened, and I still get to choose what to do with it." It does not deny reality. It turns reality into road. You lose someone you love. Pain comes, the world changes, and your first instinct is to rebel. But what do you do with that pain? Do you turn it into weight or into strength? You fail a project, you get rejected, you fall short, and you think, "It wasn't supposed to be this way." But who said what should have been? The Stoic looks at what happened and asks, how can I turn this into part of my growth? Contemporary psychology calls this post-traumatic growth. Research shows that many people who go through deep loss, illness, grief, painful restarts, not only recover, they emerge stronger, wiser, more grounded. That's not a miracle. It's a choice. It's a process. It is essentially amor fati in action. A study published in Psychological Science, Tedeschi and Calhoun, identified 5 areas of growth in people who endured trauma: new life possibilities, stronger relationships, increased personal strength, deeper appreciation for life, spiritual or philosophical development. All of these align with Stoic spirit. Not because pain is good, but because pain can be used for something greater. Much of our suffering comes from the gap between what we expected and what actually happened. We expected recognition. We expected reciprocity. We expected justice. We expected the world to give us what we believed we deserved. But the world makes no promises, and the Stoic demands no guarantees. He lives by principles, not by expectations. The Stoics practiced an exercise called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of misfortunes. They would imagine, before sleeping or upon waking, what might go wrong that day, not to suffer in advance, but to train the mind to accept from the start that life won't go as planned, and even so, it's still worth living. Imagine waking up expecting traffic, frustration, delays. When they come, you're ready. When they don't, you're grateful. Maximus lives in every step the power of Stoic acceptance. He expects no pity, does not beg for justice, but neither does he curse the world. He accepts the burden and walks with it on his shoulders, with firmness, with discipline, with dignity. And that is why he inspires, not for his glory, but for his ability to keep his soul clean, even when everything around him is corrupted. To accept is not to stop acting. Acceptance is acting with awareness, without despair, without victimhood, without attachment to total control. It's saying, the world played its part. Now, it's my turn. In practice, amor fati reveals itself in the details, in the good morning, given even on a bad day, in the calmness before an offense, in the dedication to a task, even when no one is watching, in the resilience to keep going, even when the world says you should have quit long ago. To love fate is to say yes to reality, and to trust that, even without understanding now, there is a greater meaning being woven. Acceptance is not loss. It's stopping the waste of energy on what cannot be changed. It is taking what exists and doing your best with it. Maximus accepted his own fate, not as submission, but as mission. And perhaps that is the secret of true freedom, to accept what is and yet still choose to be virtuous. In a world where everything seems to be for sale, virtue becomes an act of rebellion. We are surrounded by invitations to corruption, lies that make life easier, shortcuts that pay off, small invisible betrayals that seem harmless, but each one of them shapes you. And little by little, you stop being who you are to become what the world wants you to be. For the Stoics, none of this is new. They knew that the greatest danger of suffering is not the pain itself. It's what pain might turn you into. That's why they said something radical. The only truly good thing is virtue, and the only truly bad thing is the corruption of the soul. Virtues in Latin, wasn't just being nice, it was moral strength, courage with integrity, wisdom in action, justice in motion. It was the invisible axis that held a man upright, even when everything around him fell. Maximus loses everything the world considers valuable: status, power, family, his name. But what he doesn't lose, what he never hands over, is his virtue. He remains just, he remains loyal, he remains whole, even when no one is watching, even when there's no reward left. It's easy to seem virtuous when you're being admired. Hard is to remain virtuous when no one claps for you, when everything around you says, "Relax, no one will know, just this once." Everybody does it. But virtue is what you choose to keep even when the entire world says to abandon it. Lying on your resume, pretending to care for gain, only giving your best when someone's watching, talking behind someone's back to fit into a group. None of this seems severe, but all of this robs something from you. Each small betrayal chips away at your self-worth, and over time you feel lost, not because the world is wrong, but because you've disconnected from what is right. Seneca wrote, "Life is like a play. It's not the length that matters, but how it's performed. Your virtue is your invisible script. It gives meaning even when the stage is small, even when there's no audience, even when the final act is silent." Modern psychology calls this intrinsic motivation. Self-determination theory, Deshi and Ryan, 1985, states that humans thrive when they live in alignment with three pillars: autonomy, competence, meaningful relationships. And these pillars align directly with the virtuous life. Autonomy, living by your own principles. Competence, developing excellence. Relationships, practicing justice and mutual respect. So living virtuously isn't just morally right, it's psychologically healthy. When you live just to please, to have, to be accepted, you may be successful in the eyes of the world, but inside, there's a void. You feel fragile. Any criticism shakes you. Any change paralyzes you, because you no longer know who you are. Maximus doesn't need titles to know who he is. He is the backbone of what is right. In silence, he inspires. In pain, he leads. In loss, he stays true to himself. And that, more than any glory, is what makes him unbreakable. Pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what are the principles you refuse to compromise? What values sit above all outcomes? If you don't know how to answer, it's time to write your own code. Marcus Aurelius did this. He wrote to himself, reminding who he wanted to become, who he refused to become, what actions were worthy of the soul he wished to shape. Virtue protects you. It won't spare you pain, but it keeps pain from corrupting you. It won't spare you loss, but it keeps loss from destroying you. It is the invisible shield you carry, and when everything collapses, it is what will keep you standing. Studies in moral psychology, like those by Dan Ariely and Jonathan Haidt, show that people who act with consistent integrity have less anxiety, less chronic guilt, and greater self-esteem. Why? Because when your actions reflect your values, your mind aligns. You feel like you're where you should be, being who you're meant to be. Staying true to yourself takes effort, but living without integrity costs far more. You carry guilt, shame, regret. Virtue is hard at first, but over time, it becomes light. It frees you. Because to live with virtue is to live without fear of looking at yourself in the mirror. You can lose everything: your name, your reputation, your money, but if you don't lose your virtue, you remain undefeated. Maximus lost everything, but he died free because he held on to the one thing that made him truly human, and that is all you ever need to protect: your essence, your center, your character. Maudesum tashiki, ji tasitaisen bisha si. That is the most valuable good you possess, and the only one that can never be taken from you. So far, we've walked the path of philosophy. We've talked about control, acceptance, and virtue. But philosophy that doesn't become action is just intellectual ornament. True Stoicism isn't theory, it's practice, it's habit, it's daily choice. Maximus is not a hero because he knew too much. He's a hero because he lived what he believed, and that is within anyone's reach. The Stoic life stands on 4 central virtues: courage, self-control, justice, wisdom. They're not abstract ideals, they are tools to walk through the chaos of the modern world with clarity and integrity. Let's look at each one up close and understand how to live like Maximus today. 1. Courage, the strength to stay standing. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's action in spite of fear. Maximus feels fear, but he moves forward because he knows cowardice also hurts, but it hurts the soul. Today, courage might be speaking the truth when everyone stays silent, defending your principles despite mockery, facing a difficult conversation, asking for help when pride says don't, starting over after failure. Courage is the act of remaining whole in a world trying to bend you. Research by Dr. Brené Brown shows that vulnerability, the act of being emotionally real, is the birthplace of courage. True courage is not brutality, it's emotional integrity. It's opening your chest to life and walking forward, even without guarantees. Make a list of what you avoid out of fear. Choose one of them. Take a step, even a small one, toward it. Courage is built like a muscle, with training, with sweat, with exposure. 2. Self-control, mastering the inner world. Self-control is the power to say no to what weakens, and yes to what strengthens, even when it hurts. Maximus is not led by impulse, he is led by principle, and for that reason, he does not become the monster he seeks to defeat. Today, self-control looks like not reacting with fury when provoked, resisting impulses, consumption, laziness, procrastination, staying true to yourself, even when no one is watching. It is the sacrifice of the now in the name of the forever. The famous marshmallow test by Walter Mischel showed that children who resisted immediate rewards had greater success later in life, because self-control is freedom. If you can't say no to what you want now, you'll never reach what you truly want later. Identify one habit that sabotages your growth. Create a ritual to replace it with something constructive. Use the Stoic technique of preparation. If temptation arises, I will respond with this action. The quiet repetition of right choices builds inner strength. 3. Justice, living for something greater. Justice is doing what's right, even when it costs, even when no one sees it. Maximus does not act out of personal interest, he acts out of principle, because he knows there is no peace where there is no justice. Today, justice might mean treating with respect those who have nothing to offer you, acting ethically at work, even under pressure, standing up for what's right, even in the minority, being just with yourself, neither too harsh nor permissive. Jonathan Haidt, in his research on morality, shows that we are biologically wired to react to injustice, in ourselves and in others. But only the conscious can resist impulsive responses and act with responsibility. Justice demands presence. Reflect. Is there an injustice you've committed by action or omission? Make amends, ask for forgiveness, correct it, and do something just today, even if small, and tell no one. That is invisible power, and the soul feels it. 4. Wisdom, the art of choosing the way. Wisdom is the virtue that ties all others together. It asks, is this the right thing? It listens, it reflects, and it decides. Maximus is wise because he doesn't act on impulse. He sees beyond the pain, beyond the glory, beyond the moment. Today, wisdom might mean choosing silence when words won't help, thinking before reacting, listening to advice, and filtering it wisely, admitting you don't know everything, growing every day, even in silence. According to psychologist Robert Sternberg, wisdom is not IQ. It is the ability to apply knowledge to real life with discernment. That's what the Stoic seeks, to live with deep awareness. Create the habit of writing down your successes and failures each day. Ask, what is this teaching me? Reread your weekly notes. Wisdom lives in repetition that is observed. Maximus lives as a soldier, but the greatest war he fights is against his own shadow. And he wins, not because he triumphs, but because he remains faithful, steady, just, serene. The Stoic sees every day as training, every adversity as a test, every encounter as a chance to practice who he wants to be. Life is his dojo, his battlefield, his temple, his mirror. There is nothing more revolutionary than someone who lives with honor. In a world of masks, living with integrity is to be a silent gladiator. You don't have to change the world, but you can change how you walk through it. And when you do, the world around you begins to change too. You've made it this far, and that already says something about you. While so many lose themselves in distraction, you chose to listen, to reflect, to feel, and that isn't easy. Looking inward requires courage, but it is only there that the true battles are won. Along this path, we've revisited the pillars that uphold the soul, what you control, what you must accept, what you must protect, and how all of it turns into action. Maximus was our guide, not because he's perfect, but because he's human, because he fell and chose to rise with dignity, because he lost and remained whole, because he lived as if virtue were more important than victory. The world doesn't need more opinions. It needs quiet examples, people who walk with conviction even when no one claps, who practice justice even when it's uncomfortable, who protect their soul even when everything around them seems corrupted. The final question is not, did you win? It is, did you remain faithful to what you believed? The rarest kind of victory is a life lived in coherence, a life with no shame of itself. Maximus dies a slave, but inside, he is a free man, because true freedom is not doing whatever you want. It is living who you are. You don't control the future, but everything you do today echoes in the people who watch you in silence, in the energy you leave, in the places you pass, in the thoughts you inspire, in the dreams you awaken. Your life is saying something, even when you are silent. The question is, what is it saying? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Stop debating what a good man should be. Be one." This is the essence of it all. We don't need formulas. We need the courage to practice the obvious. Be just, be strong, be compassionate, be conscious. Life won't spare you just because you understand this. Pain will still come. So will doubt and failure. But now, you carry something you didn't before: awareness, direction, purpose. You don't need to shout your transformation. Let it reveal itself in your silence, in your posture, in your gaze, in the way you act when no one else is paying attention. That's how the world is changed, one gesture at a time. You are not what they did to you, not what you lost, not what others say about you. You are what you decide to be. Each day, each choice, you are the general of your soul. And life is the battlefield where your philosophy becomes flesh. Take a deep breath. Close your eyes for a moment and tell yourself, I am capable of withstanding whatever comes. I am capable of living with virtue. I am capable of being free, even in chains. Rise. You were born for this.